Shalom, everybody. Welcome to another special episode of the Pulse of Israel together with the Yes Israel Project. And today we will be speaking with former Ambassador Yoram Ettinger, an expert on U.S.-Israel relations and the Middle East. So let's get everyone on board. Shalom, Sarah of the Yes Israel Project.
Good to see everybody. Welcome, welcome. Looking forward to a wonderful, wonderful broadcast today.
And Shalom, Yoram. Thank you for being with us today.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you.
So we're unbelievable current events today, very tumultuous times, very historic times, Israel, U.S.-Israel relations, influential U.S. elections coming up. Based on your expertise and your years in the field with U.S.-Israel relations, love to hear your thoughts, Yoram, about what we're experiencing today.
Well, the current election in the U.S. Introduces, I believe, two almost opposing worldviews when it comes to geostrategic issues, when it comes to regional and global and American national security. For instance, on the one hand, you have an administration which has increased substantially U.S. defense budget and therefore has enhanced U.S. posture of deterrence, which is very essential to minimize Middle East and global insanity and turbulence. On the other hand, you have a potential administration based on the Obama-Biden administration that probably is not going to increase defense budget, possibly even reduce defense budget, and therefore erode the U.S. National security deterrence or posture of deterrence, hence also undermining global stability or further undermining global stability. You have on one hand an administration which has pressured the Ayatollahs of Iran militarily and financially, and therefore has provided much confidence to every single pro-American Arab regime. And on the other hand, based again on the Obama-Biden precedent, a potential administration which once again would embrace the Ayatollahs of Iran as they did back in 2015, providing the Ayatollahs some $150 billion. And that would be very substantial tailwind to the goals of the Ayatollahs, which is to spread regional and global terrorism, epicenter of the proliferation of conventional and non-conventional military technologies and Islamic terrorism, in fact, all the way to South and Central America. You have, on one hand, an administration which has assisted every single pro-American Arab regime to combat Muslim Brotherhood terrorism, and then, based on the Obama-Biden precedent, an administration that could embrace the Muslim Brotherhood as Obama did back in 2009 through 2013, when he embraced the Muslim Brotherhood at the expense of the pro-American Mubarak regime. And certainly we are talking about an administration which has recognized the Arab tsunami in the Middle East for what it is, and an administration that could resurrect the Obama-Biden misperception of Arab Spring, as they refer to it, the March of Democracy, a youth revolution, Facebook revolution. But in fact, it has been all along, as the current administration has recognized it, Arab tsunami, replete with civil war, Islamic terrorism, and anti-American rogue regimes and rogue organizations. And when it comes directly to Israel, the question of the peace process, are we going to see continuation of the current peace process, expanding the peace process to further more relatively moderate Arab and Muslim regimes joining it, while literally bypassing the Palestinian issue, which has never been the crux of the Arab-Israeli conflict or crown jewel of Arab policymakers, literally following in the footsteps of Arabs most of whom do not want a Palestinian state, which they assess to be another agitating, destabilizing element in the Middle East. But on the other hand, you could get in January 2021 an administration which, based on the Obama-Biden precedent, that would revive the misreading of the Middle East, thus deluding itself that the Palestinian issue is ostensibly the core cause of Middle East turbulence, crown jewel of Arab policymakers, and therefore according the Palestinians a veto power over the Arab-Israeli peace process. And last and not least, the major question is, comes January 2021, who is going to rejoice the outcome? Currently, Iran's Ayatollahs, the Muslim Brotherhood terrorists, Hezbollah, Hamas terrorists, and the Palestinian Authority all are praying for a victory of Biden over Trump, while every single pro-American Arab regime, whether it's Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, they all pray for continuation of the current administration. And therefore, while obviously the American constituency is voting based on domestic issues, Supreme Court appointments and immigration and medical issues and economic and education and welfare issues and health issues and law and order, when it comes to homeland security and national security, there is a very, very major gap between the two opposing candidates for the White House. One, in my mind, would minimize turbulence. The other one could add fuel to the current fire in the Middle East and throughout the globe.
So it seems very clear, according to your analysis, that obviously if President Trump is reelected, we have another 4 years, then we'd see a continuation of the policy together with Israel and the other Sunni Arab countries that are part of this strengthening coalition in the Middle East with the United States to stand up against Iran, etc., and maybe a continuation of normalization agreements with other Arab Muslim countries. Right now, polls are obviously, we have no clue what direction American elections are going to go. A lot of polls are saying that Joe Biden will be voted as to be president of the United States come November. And I just want to go based on a potential that Joe Biden does become president. We've all seen, or most of us have seen, the video that has gone viral the past a few weeks ago of John Kerry back in 2016 saying no normalization will happen with any Arab countries. It is only possible after a state of Palestine comes to be created. Well, here under the Trump administration, normalization with Arab countries has began without a creation of a state of Palestine, because they're always the ones saying no. Do you foresee a potential change in foreign policy of a Biden administration saying, oh my God, normalization is happening, let's keep this going? Or do you see that perspective, that foreign policy that John Kerry represented, returning to a Biden White House to be imposed back in the Middle East with Israel?
Well, based on Vice President Biden's own record from his days in the Senate throughout his days as Vice President, and more so based on the track record of the people who surround him, whether it's the potential Vice President Kamala Harris, or his advisors, all of whom subscribed to the traditional State Department misreading of the Middle East, replete with cardinal errors in the Middle East. Based on those facts, one can only expect a return to the Palestinian-centered foreign policy, which would be a major blow to the peace process, but more importantly, it would be a return to the U.S. subordinating its own national security policy to a universal type of worldview, namely subordinating it to an extent to the UN position, to the European position, at the expense of US unilateral independent national security action. And again, the best one would say the worst example is the 2015 nuclear accord with Iran, which basically was a derivative of the joint position by the State Department top bureaucracy and the European and UN state of mind. That would be a major blow to Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, Jordan, Egypt, and a major tailwind to the strategic goals, megalomaniacal goals of the Ayatollahs, who would like to expand their influence not only in the Persian Gulf and the Middle East and Central Asia and Africa, but they aim at reaching the Mediterranean and Europe, all the way, in fact, through the Atlantic to the American continent. They're already, the Ayatollahs, along with Hezbollah and some Hamas presence in South and Central America. And the return of the Obama-Biden state of mind to the White House would only generate further incentives for the Ayatollahs.
Sarah,
Yoram, Yoram, I just have a quick question. Let's take a little step back over the last 4 years and go through the history of what the Trump administration has done. We are all intimately know all the steps they took in order to get us to this point where we're able to be signing peace and agreements with the United Arab Emirates, now Bahrain, hopefully further moderate Arab states. But what has been the trajectory of the Trump administration for our viewers who might not know all the things that the Trump administration has done in order to get us to this point today, where we're in a totally different state in our foreign affairs and strengthening the American-Israel relationship?
Well, I would say primarily one needs to go back to the Trump bottom line. Let's make America great again. Trump's decision to recognize Israel's control sovereignty over the Golan Heights is not merely pro-Israel decision. It's a pro-American decision. And Trump understands that Israel on the Golan Heights constrains the Ayatollahs in Syria and Lebanon, therefore secures the pro-American Hashemite regime in Jordan. Trump understands that Israel on the Golan Heights constrains the maneuverability of both Syria itself, as well as Russia and Turkey inside Syria, thus again minimizing regional instability. Moreover, the Trump administration intent to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Jordan Valley and parts of Judea, Samaria, hopefully one day over the entire Judea and Samaria, again is a derivative of the Trump's realization that Israel on the mountain ridges of the Judea and Samaria area constitutes the most effective defense line for the Hashemites in Jordan, and therefore for every single pro-American Arab regime in the Arabian Peninsula. And all that has led to unprecedented cooperation with Israel, geostrategic cooperation, military cooperation, intelligence cooperation, military and commercial high-tech cooperation, not because of being pro-Israel, but because of the realization that Israel has become the major force multiplier for the US, not only in the Middle East, but anywhere in the world. We currently hear discussions in Washington about Israel's qualitative military edge. Once again, this is not merely an advantage for Israel to be militarily superior to every country in the Middle East. This is very substantial contribution to America's national security. Israel's possessing a qualitative military edge allows the US to gradually withdraw from the Middle East. Israel, with a qualitative edge in the Middle East, serves as an extension of the US strategic hand in the Middle East without the need to add a single American military person to the Middle East. And the bottom line is that the current administration, unlike prior administrations, has realized that the $3.8 billion, which is annually transferred for Israeli requirements in the defense field, is not foreign aid, but rather it is an investment in Israel, which provides an annual rate of return of 700% every single year in form of lessons which are shared by Israel with the US, lessons of operation and maintenance and repairs of American military hardware. Those lessons upgrade the American military hardware, which increase US exports, which saves the US many, many years of research and development, which expands US employment and bolsters US national security. For this administration, Israel is not a party or member of the group of those who are vying for foreign aid. For this administration is a partner in a joint battle for global sanity. Obviously, we, Israel, we are the junior partner, but we are a partner, not a supplicant vying for some overseas assistance.
So
Thank you.
Since you started focusing on things that the Trump administration did for Israel, I want to specifically focus on the moving of the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Can you emphasize the importance of that as a diplomatic move, not just for Israel, but for the United States as well?
Well, it's much more than a diplomatic move. It's a signal to rogue regimes and organizations in the Middle East and beyond the Middle East who were successful pressuring and threatening every single American administration since 1995, when Congress passed that resolution to relocate the embassy to Jerusalem. And here comes an administration, or here comes a president, currently President Trump, who basically delivers a message to Arabs: I'm not going to be deterred by your threats and pressure. You cannot push me over. You cannot prohibit me from recognizing reality. And I'm going to relocate the embassy to Israel's capital. Now, this is not merely a diplomatic statement. It's a move which bolsters U.S. posture of deterrence. And the fact is that, contrary to warnings by the top bureaucrats at the Department of State, contrary to the warning by the so-called elite U.S. media, there has been no eruption of violence, of anti-American violence, anti-Israel violence as a result of this move. The opposite happened. The pro-American Arab regimes realized we finally have a president in the White House upon whom we can rely, upon whom we can rely on a rainy day when faced by deadly, lethal threats posed by the Ayatollahs of Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood.
Sarah, any other questions for Yoram?
I'd say, Yoram, if we continue on this trajectory, what do you see as the future? Should there be a Trump re-election come November? And where do you see the next steps? What will be the next steps for Israel, the US, and the greater Middle East?
Well, obviously, it depends on many elements here, but the current expansion of the peace process definitely is going to take place. The only question is who is going to join, not only in the Persian Gulf and the Middle East, but also in Africa, which Muslim Arab country will join, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. A much more critical question is, will the US take the current justifiable military and financial pressure on the Ayatollahs of Iran one step further? Namely, at the end of the day, the Ayatollahs of Iran are not partner for negotiation. I'm very concerned whenever I hear voices coming out of Washington talking about a better deal with the Ayatollahs. There's no better deal with the Ayatollahs because the Ayatollahs of Iran are not driven by trade balance. They're not driven by enhanced standard of living, enhanced education, let alone by freedom in their own country. The Ayatollahs of Iran are driven by a fanatical, religious, megalomaniacal vision, which they have espoused from day one when they took over control of Iran back in January of 1979. The only way to rid the Iranian people of this despotic regime, the only way to rid the Persian Gulf and the Middle East and the globe from the threat of the Ayatollahs is by toppling the Ayatollahs. And I suspect that this cannot be undertaken by the Iranian people alone. The Iranian people need an outside assistance to finally put an end to the regime of the Ayatollahs.
I have one follow-up question. Again, following Sarah's line of thinking, looking forward to the future, what does Israel and or together with the United Arab Emirates or Bahrain or even Saudi Arabia, how do they have to readjust to a potential Biden presidency and no more the presidency and policies of the Trump administration?
Well, you know, there's the old saying, it ain't the first one, ain't the last one, and ain't the worst one. It's going to be another challenge. We have gone through many uphill type of challenges. This will be another such challenge, which will require each one of us to roll up our sleeves and make even better effort to present the Middle East as it really is. But again, based on what's in it for the US and not what's in it for Israel or what's in it for Saudi Arabia or what's in it for the United Arab Emirates. I suspect that if there is a return back to the Obama-Biden policy vis-a-vis the Ayatollahs, we are going to experience the outcome of such a flawed policy within the next few months, with the intensification of terrorism, with potential eruption of wars or limited conflicts throughout the Middle East, with potential involvement of Turkey and Russia, possibly the US and its Fifth Fleet in the Persian Gulf itself, and that could wake up a Biden administration to the reality. We remember going back to the 2010-11 eruption of the Arab tsunami, which was referred to by Biden-Obama administration as an Arab Spring. And as a result of this self-delusion of an Arab Spring, the Obama-Biden administration undertook to topple the regime of Gaddafi, who used to be a terrorist, but by 2010, he became one of the most ardent warriors against Islamic terrorism, but he was toppled by the Obama-Biden administration, which transformed Libya until this very day into one of the leading global platform of Islamic terrorism, haunting North and Central Africa, parts of Europe. And hopefully this is going to be a lesson for a potential Biden administration, how to learn from past severe errors by avoiding rather than by repeating them.
Well, that is very, very important information. Thank you so much, Yoram. Sarah, anything to end with?
Yoram, thank you. Your words of wisdom, we appreciate it. Your insight is immeasurable. Your experience is really, we just appreciate your time and your energy and your commitment to the people, the state of Israel, the U.S.-Israel relationship, the greater Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And once again, thank you for your time, Yoram. And Sarah, thank you. And for the Yes Israel Project on all the work that's being done to strengthen the relationship between the United States of America and Israel. We definitely believe a strong America makes a stronger Israel. A strong Israel makes a stronger America. So thank you very much, Sarah, for all the work you do through the Yes Israel Project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you once again. Hopefully you enjoyed this really, really important and amazing information from former ambassador and Middle East and U.S.-Israel relations expert Yoram Ettinger. And once again, thanks for watching another episode of The Pulse of Israel in our ancestral and eternal homeland, the land of Israel, the Judean hills. Everyone stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.